If you're tired of mountains, rivers, streams, the ocean, hiking, fishing, skiing, all of the outdoor activities, welcome to Amarillo, Texas. That might be a joke. It might not be. Stick around to the end of the video to find out more information about the extracurricular activities in Amarillo, Texas. But we get phone calls from everyday people just like you watching this video who are moving to Amarillo, Texas, or who are thinking about moving to Amarillo, Texas. And so if that's you today and you're maybe 30, 60, 90 days, even if it's going to be a year out, give us a call today. Here is the QR code on the screen. If you'll just scan that, that'll give you my direct information, but at least it'll allow us a chance to connect and talk about your next move and see if Amarillo, Texas is the right fit for you. Let's go ahead and dive in. So one of the things about moving from Oregon to Texas to know is you're basically moving from a politically red. No, I'm just kidding. You're basically politically moving from a blue, or I would actually suggest a purple state, because most of your people in rural areas outside of the college towns and communities and outside of Portland and Oregon are pretty conservative. The majority of political views here in Amarillo, Texas are conservative views. The also main other differences is we're going to actually have that Southern hospitality that you talk about or that you hear about. Oregon has some of the nicest people that I've ever met in my life. Texas also has some of the most friendly people you'll ever meet in your life. And because of that, and because people here care so much, they're going to press into you a bit. So it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable for you, because in the Pacific Northwest, I notice everybody's kind of at an arm's length. They're really nice people, but they're kind of at an arm's length. So here in Amarillo, Texas, you're going to get hugs. You're going to say, hey, neighbors. You're going to get people knocking on your door when you move to the neighborhood, welcoming you. And that's just the way it is here in Amarillo, Texas. The second thing to know about moving to Amarillo, Texas versus Oregon is the cost of living. The cost of living is so much cheaper here than it is in Oregon. The average median sales price in Oregon is $510,000. The average median sales price in the state of Texas is between $360,000 and $380,000. That's the entire state. Amarillo is actually over $100,000 cheaper on the median sale price than the national average. Sure, the home prices might be cheaper and the median sale price might be cheaper, but honestly, your property taxes here are extremely high. So in Oregon, on average, you have about a 0.97% property tax rate. Here in Texas and Amarillo specifically, we're around of about a 1.8, and that can vary based off of your counties between 1.4 1.8%, but it's going to be a lot higher than what you're used to seeing in Oregon. And so that is something to take into consideration. So with that being said, your property taxes are going to be a little bit more expensive here, quite a bit more expensive here than they are in Oregon. We don't have state income tax here. So Oregon, that's a big deal, because if you're a business, not only do you get taxed at the self-employment rate, you also have the state tax. And so you're paying two different taxes along with federal taxes to do business in the state of Oregon, as to where in the state of Texas, you don't have that third tax. And so, I mean, from Oregon to Texas, that saves you almost 9%. I'm not a CPA, but that is the tax rate for the state tax of Oregon. The third thing to consider when moving from Oregon to Amarillo, Texas, is going to actually be it's going to be the jobs and unemployment. It's going to be the economy. In Oregon right now, the unemployment rate is sitting at 3.4%, which is pretty good and beats most of the nation, definitely the national average of unemployment rate. And that's after getting completely obliterated in the pandemic with upwards of almost 14% unemployment. I remember being in Oregon during the pandemic, and it hit that state extremely hard. And so I remember businesses, the way businesses were done completely changed, as to where here in Amarillo, Texas, standard day, it was just business as usual. Now, Texas, on the other hand, is around 3.2%, which is actually pretty low as well. The economic outlook for here in Amarillo, Texas is amazing, though, considering Amarillo, Texas is actually the second fastest growing mid-sized city in the U.S. And so we have an extremely great growth rate. Our GDP has gone up year over year. And even in 2008, when the crash happened, this economy actually continued to grow. There's so many jobs and so many diverse economic landscapes in Amarillo, Texas. Amarillo is a great place to do business, and it is thriving and growing right now. So this is a great economy to move into, especially coming from Oregon. The economic outlook for Amarillo, Texas is extremely good. We're going to talk about the things to do versus Oregon and Amarillo, Texas. As I mentioned earlier on in the video, if you're ready to get rid of the streams, get rid of the mountains, get rid of hiking and biking and camping and forestry and different landscapes and diverse climates, and the Oregon coast, which is phenomenal, and Crater Lake and all of these amazing. If you're ready to give all of that up, that's the big difference between Oregon and Amarillo, Texas. Amarillo, Texas, we're on the Cap Rock and it is flat ground here, and you can see a sunset for miles and miles and miles. That is the one big difference versus Oregon. Oregon, it was almost like everything was compressed with your view because of how close in proximity the forests are, the Cascade Range, the Coastal Range. Well, here in Amarillo, Texas, we're completely flat. So you can see the sunset for miles and miles and miles. It's big open sky here. The other thing that I think Amarillo is actually underrated for is the outdoor and extracurricular activities here. So we have Paladaro State Park, which is an amazing place to go adventure, to go hiking, to go trail biking, to go mountain biking. The Sod Poodles, which is our minor league baseball team. And then you also have an indoor professional football team in the Amarillo Venom. There are parks all throughout the city of Amarillo. And with that, you actually have two really good disc golf courses here in Amarillo, one at Thompson Park, the other one at John Stitt Memorial Park. There's fireworks shows at John Stitt Memorial Park, at the Sod Poodles. There's so many diverse things to do here. I think Amarillo is actually underrated for what all activities you have. There's Synergy, which you can take the kids to a movie, play laser tag. There's arcades. There's Amped, which is basically an indoor trampoline park and climbing facility. And they have all sorts of, they have a Ninja Warrior obstacle course. There's so many things to do here in Amarillo, Texas that is completely underrated. We have Golf Lounge. We have a lot of different golf courses and some of the best golf courses. With like Ross Rogers is one of the top golf courses apparently in the nation. And so we have so many different things to do here in Amarillo. The other thing about Amarillo versus Oregon is the drive time. So when you're talking about things to do in Oregon, you can basically get to anything you want to do in 2 hours time. You can get to the coast in an hour if you're living in the valley. You can get to the mountains in an hour and a half. You can get to skiing in about an hour and a half anywhere you go 2 hours. And that's pretty much anywhere in the state. If you want to go hunting, you have Eastern Oregon, you have Central Oregon, you have the coast. There's so many different avenues to go there. But your drive time is so much less to get to do so much more. As to where here in Amarillo, you're driving if you want to go do some of those things. So the nearest ski facility is going to be Santa Fe, and that's Santa Fe, New Mexico, and that's 3 hours and 45 minutes away. You also have Angel Fire, Taos, and Red River, which is a little bit further away, about 4.5 hours or so to get to those ski resorts in New Mexico. We're about 5.5 hours away from the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We're about 3.5 hours away from Oklahoma City. If you want to go to the mountains of Colorado and go check out all of that scene, you're going to be looking around 6 to 8 hours to get to Colorado. The last thing is when you're talking about the differences between Oregon and Texas, it's going to be the weather. You have to talk about the weather. Oregon has diverse weather, but I would say not anything like the state of Texas, especially the Amarillo area. Whenever I lived in the valley in Oregon, which is around the Corvallis, Oregon area, temperatures were pretty mild. I remember wearing shorts most of the time in February, the first year we moved up there, because it never really got below freezing. Or if it did, it was like maybe a handful of times throughout the year. You either knew it was going to be raining or not raining most of the time. And the wind, I could count on my hand probably the number of windy days we had versus non-windy days. That was the one big difference I remember was Oregon had so much less wind than what I was used to in everyday living here. Well, that's where we get into the differences with Amarillo versus Oregon. Amarillo is the second windiest city in the nation with an average wind speed of around 16 miles an hour. That's daily, you guys. There's days that we can get 80 to 90 mile an hour gusts whenever we have fronts coming in from the Colorado Rockies or coming off the plains and heading east. We get dry lines in the summertime that can produce tornadic activity, hailstorms. There's so many different ranges of variations of weather here. It could be 120 degrees in the summertime. It could be negative 20 wind chill in the wintertime. And it can do all of that in about a day. That is the type of weather swings and how quickly you can have them here in Texas versus Oregon. and the dynamic range of 120 heat index in the summertime at times to -20 in the wintertime, and everything in between that can happen all in one day. So that is something to be prepared for if you're moving to Amarillo, Texas. If you want to stay in the know about all things Amarillo, the eateries, the shopping, the things to do, the housing market, affordability, jobs, anything to do with you potentially moving to Amarillo, Texas, or living in Amarillo, Texas, go ahead and give this video a like. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you get alerted when new episodes are released on this channel, and you can be the first to know about important events and things that are happening in this community. Guys, I hope that was a great outlook for you, a great overview of the differences between Oregon and Amarillo, Texas. I hope that gave you enough things to consider when hopefully choosing to move here. Maybe you found out Amarillo is right for you, maybe it's wrong for you. Thank you, and as always, go make an impact.